and I made him watch. Hello and welcome back to And I Made Him Watch. I'm your host, Danny Page, and here with me forever and always, a man that may or may not be my husband, my co-host and filmmaker, Troy Allen. Say hi, Allen.
Hello. I promise I'm not holding her hostage. Mm-mm. You know, she is here of her free will.
I am.
Before we get too far into this episode, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. You know, we appreciate it.
Yep, we sure do. And, share us around a little bit. We appreciate it, So I really can't believe how, great a movie month this has been. Mm-hmm. We watched two very meaningful and deep movies. Not to say that Invasion of the Body Snatchers isn't deep or meaningful, but the two we watched earlier, Akira Kurosawa's Dreams and Mamoru Oshii's Angel Egg, were both really top tier, meaningful and insightful type of movies. And we completely kind of had a little bit of a turnaround with this week's watch of Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Mm-hmm. It's ironic, it's witty, it's shocking, and gut-wrenching. Invasion of the Body Snatchers is a 1978 sci-fi horror movie. It was directed by Philip Kaufman and written by W.D. Richter. And then the film is a remake from the 1956 version, and both are based off the 1955 novel The Body Snatchers by Jack Finney.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, Dreams and Angel's Egg were both more philosophical type movies. Invasion of the Body Snatchers is much more
grounded.
Yeah, it's much more grounded in
plot intense.
I would say grounded in our reality, even though it's a sci-fi movie.
Oh, yeah.
But it's not B horror either. It's more mainstream.
It is. But it's a vintage movie. It's it's one that is really well known and people love, and I completely understand why. This is probably one of my favorite movies now that I've watched it, because this is my first watch. It does have message behind it. It's a deep meaning message. Mm-hmm. Even though it is, a sci-fi movie that is based off of events that are very not plausible, but still, it still has that same message and stuff.
Yeah, and I mean there are a lot of I would say blockbuster films that took inspiration from Body Snatchers.
Oh, most definitely.
So it's definitely earned its place in the Cinema Hall of Fame, if you will.
Mm-hmm, I totally agree. Born on October 23rd, 1936 in Chicago, Illinois, Philip Kaufman is known for his versatility and independence in filmmaking. Before directing Invasion of the Body Snatchers, Kaufman had directed several films, including Goldstein, which won the Prix de la Nouvelle Critique at Cannes. I hope I said that.
I think that's the Prix de la Nouvelle Critique at Cannes.
Cannes, sorry. I'm American. Thank you for that, though.
Yeah.
Fearless Frank, and then The Great Northern Minnesota Raid, The White Dawn, and he also co-wrote the screenplay for Outlaw Josie Wells.
The Outlaw Josie Wells, yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm. Interesting. Well, to be fair, I haven't seen any of those movies.
I haven't either.
I do know the Outlaw Josie Wells, I think, had Clint Eastwood in it.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah, but again, I haven't seen them.
No.
So,
Walter Dutch
Richter.
I don't know why that. I think it's the way it's spelled kind of throws me off.
It is the way it's spelled.
Yeah. That dyslexia is no joke.
No.
He was born December 7th, 1945 in New Britain, Connecticut. He's an American screenwriter, director, and producer. Before writing Invasion of the Body Snatchers, he wrote these screenplays, Slither, Peeper, Nickelodeon. Later on, he directed the cult classic The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai Across the Eighth Dimension, which is on the list, by the way, that we're going to watch.
Interesting.
And he co-wrote the fan favorite Big Trouble in Little China in 1986. The film begins with these gelatinous, like alien spores, on this distant planet beginning to drift up through space. And then it rains down on San Francisco and begins to assimilate into plant life and then into these pods with these pink flowers.
I love these like crash zooms of San Francisco, and the special effects of the gelatinous alien stuff is really good too. Apparently, Philip Kaufman and his team utilized a cost-effective method by acquiring a viscous substance from an art supply store, reportedly costing around $12. The material was manipulated in a liquid environment, and the footage was then reversed to create the illusion of alien life forms drifting through space and settling on flowers or plants on Earth.
So we see some strange activity already off the bat here. But we first see Elizabeth Driscoll, a lab scientist. It picks one of these flowers. Brooke Adams plays Elizabeth Driscoll, and she's just the cutest little thing, like so tiny. And I love her like whole adorable science nerdy kind of vibe. And we slowly see people starting to stare at Elizabeth. We have the iconic shot of the priest played by, what's his name?
Robert Duvall.
Yeah, Robert Duvall.
Which was a cameo.
Yeah.
Apparently, they paid him in the form of an Ernie Bauer jacket.
Yep. But he's dressed as a Catholic priest on a swing set.
Yeah, swinging
and just staring at her.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then she passes these group of children, and then the teacher stares at her too. So we're slowly, subtly seeing these strange behaviors around Elizabeth.
Yeah.
Elizabeth lives with her longtime boyfriend, Jeffrey, who is portrayed by Art Hindle. And they seem to be a very average couple, and Jeffrey seems really into the Warriors. He also likes to watch TV with headphones, which was so surreal for me. Like, how popular was that type of thing in the 70s? Like, you don't really think of people watching entertainment with headphones, back in the day. Nowadays, we see people wearing headphones all the time. But it was just a very interesting type of person to be in the 70s.
Yeah.
And Elizabeth starts to study the flower that she's brought home. She calls it a Evex, or it's some sort of plant that integrates with other plants and takes over the system or whatever. She explains it in the book or whatever when she's sitting there with Jeffrey. And we get all these very foreshadowing things in this little bit about the flower, which I liked a lot.
Yeah. There's this really slow, drawn out long shot as we're zooming down this hallway into the bedroom. But there's this plant swinging back and forth, or something swinging in and out of frame in the background.
They have this little atrium inside their bedroom that's filled with plant life and stuff. And I think it's the wind we're seeing toss these vines and stuff that you're talking about. But it's it's eerie in a way, but it's also almost like a merge with nature in the middle of a city type of thing, where two worlds kind of collide and work together.
Right. But it just adds to this sort of eeriness of the scene, because I'm expecting something to pop out the whole time, So,
and him standing there and her only be partial visible is really good. It's a very interesting shot that keeps your attention. Yeah. That's for sure.
Yeah.
The next morning, Jeffrey exhibits a cold and emotional demure. concern Elizabeth confides in her colleague, Health Inspector Matthew Bennell. Donald Sutherland plays Matthew Bennell, and he does such a wonderful job. Matthew is a health inspector, and his whole introduction is this scene where he's busting down a French restaurant, which was a great way of telling us what type of person Matthew is.
Yeah.
And I thought that was just incredible how they introduced that character.
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely tell like Matthew is a very like hard ass by the book type of guy.
Yeah, his job means a lot to him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the guy's just doing his job. There's this shot this scene where he's digging through their like soup or whatever, and he pulls this he believes to be a rat turd out of the soup, and the owner of the restaurant or whatever is trying to tell him like, no, it's a caper. So he's like, okay, well, if it's a caper, then eat it. And he's like, no.
Yeah.
But the rat turd it's kind of symbolic as to like something foreign being introduced into the system, and it's like ruining the whole thing.
Yeah, and then but people seem not to care. The people who are involved in overlooking that situation are like, meh, it's just one. What can it do?
So, in essence, this one quick like throwaway scene of the rat turd foreshadows the entire movie, So it was very interesting in that regard. There's also a scene where when Elizabeth is going to meet Matthew, she's walks into the Department of Health building and stuff. But we see this man outside with his dog playing the banjo and stuff. Which I later learned the man playing the banjo is none other than Jerry Garcia.
It is.
The frontman at the time, the frontman of the Grateful Dead. But he was playing this song about going down to Old Finney Bay.
Yeah.
Which I don't remember. I know we heard the name of the song in one of the documentaries we watched. I don't remember the title of the song. But I just thought it was interesting how he said going down to Old Finney Bay, which I kind of felt was like a nod to Jack Finney.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
The author of the novel. So
yeah,
I
probably.
thought it was interesting.
That's a good catch. Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah.
And we kind of need to pay attention to the banjo singing unhomed guy. I think he has a name, but it's only said once. I think it's Frank.
It could be.
Or the dog's name is Frank.
Yeah, because I think Matthew knows him.
Yeah. Well, he's a guy that's outside the health department every now and then. I mean, they're in San Francisco. There's a lot of homeless or unhomed people, and hippies.
There is another story about a homeless man that we'll get into later on in the film. But
it's the same homeless man.
No. This is like a IRL homeless man.
Oh,
that we learned about in one of the documentaries we watched.
Oh, I'm blanking completely.
I see that. Yeah.
Oh gosh. Okay. Well, anyway, so Elizabeth begins to notice that other people are acting strange, like having conversations without speaking, and she's noticing that Jeffrey is having these secret meetings with strangers. We, the audience, begin to notice something is just not right as well. And Matthew suggests that Elizabeth consult his friend psychiatrist, Dr. David Kibner.
Yeah, Matthew is telling Elizabeth how Kibner could put things into perspective and rule out things like Jeffrey becoming gay or being a Republican.
Yeah. Two different, completely things.
He also makes her do that thing with her eyes. Which had to have been fucking ad-lib, dude. Like, there's no way that was scripted for her to do that.
I don't know. I mean, I read the trivia and stuff on IMDb, or what is it?
Yeah, IMDb.
Yeah. Which usually will have like things about like ad-lib stuff, but I didn't really see anything about it. But yeah, it is wild that she can like vibrate her eyes that way.
But what's also interesting is during the scene, you can tell that there's a latent sort of romantic connection between Matthew and Elizabeth. So, which makes the rest of the story kind of sad.
And I loved how they set up this part of the story, because at this point it's been like a few days or so, and we see how they're actually going back in time to show us what Elizabeth actually was witnessing. And it really solidifies her experiences and makes us not question her sanity, but the sanity of others around her.
Right. I mean, the way they like display the behavior surrounding Jeffrey and stuff and these secret meetings definitely makes it to where it's becoming sort of a very irregular thing in the context of their society or whatever. And then the way that they shot these like flashback scenes with Elizabeth on the street, I mean, they were shooting, in public on a busy city street, going handheld to make it feel more documentary.
It makes it more realistic. It makes it feel more human. It makes you connect with it because these are everyday things that, you see.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really he did a great job of the shooting. Can't remember who the cinematographer is, but a lot of it was of Kaufman. Sorry. It's a day. So en route to Kibner's book signing, they encounter a hysterical man warning of an impending threat before being struck by a car, with onlookers showing no emotion.
Yeah. So the man asking for help is none other than Kevin McCarthy, who was the actual star of the 1956 adaptation Invasion of the Body Snatchers. But we've seen him before, though, in this podcast. When we did our episode on the Twilight Zone movie, during the segment with the cartoon characters, with the little boy who turns the house
everything,
into,
his imagination.
He plays Uncle Walt. Yeah. So we've seen him before. But earlier I mentioned a homeless man story. So when Kevin McCarthy was rehearsing the scene where he slams into the side of the car and stuff, a homeless man there on the street asked him, he said, "You were in the first one, right?" And Kevin McCarthy was like, "Yeah." And the homeless man said, "I like that one better."
No, that was the better one.
That was the better one, yeah. So they essentially had gotten their first film review for this movie before even completing it.
Even they were done filming. Just wild.
Yeah, that's so strange, though. I mean, I couldn't imagine shooting on a city street like that, which they said, like, this is one of the hardest places to shoot because, it being, like, in one of the more, I guess, seedier areas of San Francisco, you can't just, like, shut down city streets.
No.
No. So you kind of have to shoot around things. But yeah, they said it was somewhat difficult to shoot here.
Oh, I definitely believe that. Shooting in public is not only is that like gut wrenching and like makes me nervous and gives me anxiety, the awkwardness of having to like answer people's questions because people are going to answer questions or ask questions.
Yeah, especially people that don't spend a lot of time around like film sets or shoots or whatever. People are full of questions about it, and I don't know, there's a part of you that's always like you feel like you're being judged the whole time. So when people come up and ask you questions, you're just kind of, I don't know, kind of just trying to like avoid it in a sense, you know, but you can't. So
it's a type of conflict. So
yeah.
So at the book event, a woman is having the same issue as Elizabeth. She fears her husband is no longer her husband. Kibner convinces her that everything is fine and leaves her in the hands of her husband. When Elizabeth meets Kibner, who dismisses her concerns as relationship issues in the same way he dismisses the other woman's claims. We also meet Jack Belichick.
Yep.
Who is very frustrated and a bit jealous of Kibner's success. Jack is played by a very young and skinty queen, Jeff Goldblum. And a very dashing Leonard Nimoy plays Kibner.
Right.
So we got a very interesting... The cast on this movie was amazing.
I mean, it is an ensemble cast for sure. And it's a bit more of a Notable cast than I would say we typically deal with on the podcast, because I mean most
These are
of
pretty
these actors
mainstream.
are pretty
Yeah.
big. Yeah.
Yeah.
But Jeff Goldblum is so young in this.
Yeah,
and he
he
is
is.
skinty.
He is a skinty queen.
He's probably like $120 soaking wet.
I think he said they asked him, or Matthew asked Jack like what his like measurements and his weight is when he's like looking at the first pod person.
Yeah.
Oh no, spoilers. Anyway, and he says he's like 6'4" and 170 pounds. So I'm
Yeah.
like, you ain't no 170 pounds.
Nah, 140 maybe.
Like, you skinty. Skinty.
But I will say, watching these two powerhouses of acting speaking over each other in this scene is so entertaining. Like, because they're sometimes in scripts you have two columns of dialogue and it's happening simultaneously.
Yeah.
And being able to act in that manner where you're speaking over one another, because that's something that's not natural to human. Like, speaking over each other is a very like confrontational thing.
Oh yeah.
And to do that naturally,
chaotic.
yeah, to do that naturally takes a lot of practice, but they do it without skipping a beat. And there's an over-the-shoulder shot of Matthew on the phone and Goldblum's character is behind him, but we're watching the reflections in this this reflective. I don't know. It's
a fun house mirror, pretty much.
Yeah, it's a fun house mirror, and the reflections are all skewed, which I think is supposed to be indicative of that world being thrown in disarray.
Oh yeah, definitely. And also, it's the foreshadowing of the change in Jack. How his life is about to be different than what it is actually displayed as.
Well, both of their lives are, for sure.
And I really hate how Kibner treats Elizabeth here. It's very like 70s sexism. Elizabeth is this very smart and observant person. I mean, she's a scientist. She works in a lab. But Kibner, who is a male authority figure here, talks over her, doesn't believe her, and gaslights her own fears. And it reflects this real life sexism in the era, and it's really shitty. It's so shitty.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, even when we watched it, you mentioned it's alive.
Yeah,
so, because it is.
Sure. I mean, it is Mr. Spock, though.
Yeah.
Not that I'm into Star Trek.
It must have been such a hard role for him to just switch that on, being so cool and collective and,
Well, spoiler alert. I mean, he does become a pod person.
True.
But I mean, and that's one of the things Kaufman loved about Nimoy, was because he knew that he could portray this like emotionless sort of character the same way Mr. Spock is.
Yeah.
So, and that's one of the reasons he wanted to cast Nimoy in that role, So, but I will say though, I don't feel like the sexism is as bad as it was in It's Alive.
No, it definitely is more of this that like father figure thing they really liked in the 70s, and it's still nowadays really too sometimes.
Yeah.
Where this older man is still leading and guiding this full grown woman who has a full ass job and degree and a life and stuff. It's very daddy coded.
Yeah, I wanted to add, like, because in this scene, Kibner is so caught up in trying to get them to realize that I don't know, it's almost like they're making it up. Like, it's not really as big a deal as they make it seem to be.
He says that they are, it's like they're avoiding the conflict. So they're making something up to make it easier to avoid and not to handle.
Right, as though they're trying to create this confrontation with their significant others and stuff.
To give excuses.
Yeah. But we see Matthew and Kibner outside after Kibner convinces Elizabeth to go back to Jeffrey and stuff.
Yeah.
And Kibner and Matthew are standing outside the car.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's just interesting because it kind of foreshadows what happens to Kibner.
Yeah. But yeah, they have this like another like little conversation between the two, and after convincing Elizabeth to try and make things work with Jeffrey, Matthew takes Elizabeth home, and Jack returns to the mud bath house he runs with his wife Nancy.
Yes.
Yep.
I mean, because the one thing when Kibner and Matthew are speaking, and after Matthew leaves with Elizabeth, Kibner is standing with his back to this dumpster.
Yeah, the dumpsters and the trash. We haven't really even talked about the dump trucks.
No.
They're continuously is like dump trucks in the background of this movie.
And it's essentially like every time you see someone who has turned into a pod person, there's a trash truck, and the trash truck is essentially getting rid of the evidence.
He's getting rid of the pods.
Yeah. But what the symbolism is behind Kibner and his back being to the dumpster is it's just foreshadowing his ignorance, like his ignorance to it.
Avoiding the bigger issue. Yeah.
Ignoring it and stuff. So
should have listened to people,
But it is kind of fucked up how Kibner and Matthew are standing there talking about Elizabeth, and the window's open. She can clearly hear what they're saying.
Probably.
So it's kind of fucked up.
Well, it's that little bit of movie magic. I haven't said that in a while.
How was that movie magic?
Well, because obviously, if you heard these two men talking about you in the way, because they're like, Matthew asked Kibner if it's a contagious. And Kibner kind of laughs it off like, Matthew, take her home. And Matthew laughs and he's like, yeah, whatever. And they keep going. And Kibner's like, Matthew, take her home to her boyfriend. Like trying to get Matthew not to like get involved with this woman too far.
Yeah.
And this conversation right in front of her that's insane. Because if that had been someone who had heard this, like, okay, listen, you don't need to be talking about me like this. But yet she doesn't. She's ignorant of their conversation, even though she's right there in the scene with them.
True.
That's movie magic.
Yeah.
That's ignorance, chosen ignorance.
Yeah.
So Matthew does take Elizabeth home, and they do have like this heated moment because it is very clear these two people are very good friends and they are very attractive to each other. But Elizabeth has been in this serious relationship for who knows how long. But they don't do anything. But Jeffrey does eavesdrop on their conversation. And then back at the bathhouse, Nancy discovers a body. Jack and her call Matthew, who comes over to look at the body. Nancy is played by
Veronica Cartwright.
There we go, Veronica Cartwright, and I love Nancy. She's a real one. We'll find out why later. The strange body she finds is the exact size and weight of Jack, but the features kind of a fetus. It has this red translucent skin, no fingerprints, and is covered in thin white hairs.
Mm-hmm. I mean, for this movie to be from 1978, the special effects are really good.
Oh yeah. Well, they had like a $3 million budget or something like that.
Okay, so yeah. I mean, but there's a few like interesting clues like leading up to Nancy finding the body. There's two men in a mud bath. Well, they're in separate mud baths, I should say.
5 feet apart because they're not gay.
But one of the men gets out and goes, rinses off, and he gets on the massage table and stuff. The other man is reading a book in the mud bath, which, why would you do that? The book gets muddy.
Yeah, and we clearly see that the book is muddy.
Yeah. But the title of the book is Worlds in Collision.
Collisions of Worlds.
Something along those lines. Which is also sort of symbolic of the change that's
obviously.
happening. And then the man that's getting the massage, he tells Nancy to turn the music off. There's like classical music, and Nancy's like, no, because the plant.
It's good for the plants. Yeah,
love the music, But it's almost, because I don't think that man has been turned into a pod person yet.
No.
But yeah, it's just kind of strange. And then, yeah. Anyways, but I did enjoy it. Nancy, by the way, Veronica Cartwright, she goes on to play.
She's an alien.
She's an alien.
Yeah.
Yeah. So interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. And we see that what type of person Nancy is kind of with the whole book situation, because he suggests the collision of worlds or worlds in collision, whatever it is. And she's like, yes, I've read that already. And also, have you read the Star Guide or Star Child or some sort of like spacey hippy dippy?
Yeah.
And she's like, it's must reading too. So she kind of knows about this stuff already. She's kind of a little bit of a conspiracy theory kind of person, for sure.
Yeah, it definitely shows that she's the more informed person.
More open-minded.
Yeah.
Matthew then calls Elizabeth to warn her about the duplicates, but with no answer from her, she rushes over to her place again. He sees Jeffrey watching TV with his headphones and breaks into their house. Matthew investigates, and upon finding a duplicate of Elizabeth forming, he rescues her. Just snatches her right up out of the bed.
My boy Matthew is a badass.
Dude, Matthew went full like Bond style with this.
Yeah, dude.
Like breaking in, snatching his girl, getting out before he even like being seen by Jeffrey.
Like, I do feel like casting Donald Sutherland in a sort of like spy thriller movie was definitely a missed opportunity. Because, I mean, he smashes a window.
I mean, there might be one out there of him and something like that, probably.
Maybe. Perhaps.
He probably would have been a good James Bond, actually.
Well, he's not British. James Bond's British.
Anyways,
I mean, because he smashes the window, he like pulls the like board off and stuff, and he does a really good job of sneaking around Jeffrey.
Yeah.
Without Jeffrey noticing.
well, he loves Elizabeth, and we're really realizing that he's the type of person he would do anything for a person he cares about.
True.
And this was, he was in it. He was like, not my girl. That's not my girl, you know?
he's the ride or die, you know what I'm saying?
So Matthew and Jack, Matthew heads back to the bathhouse with Elizabeth, and Matthew and Jack convince Kimner to go to Elizabeth with the police to show them the body, like the duplicate body that Matthew saw, but it vanishes before the authorities arrive. And there's these shots of everyone's faces and how chaotic these angles were, or it really makes you feel paranoid, because they did shoot it with like one camera in this very tiny like bedroom where everyone's talking over everyone else. They're trying to figure what's out. There's Matthew's being questioned. He's yelling at Jack. He's yelling at Kibner. And then Jeffrey's just standing there, just calm and collected, just waiting.
Yeah.
It's
definitely weird that Jeffrey is just so emotionless, even though his girlfriend's missing, you know? Which, I mean, obviously we know he's a pod person, so it does track.
It would throw up a few red flags for a police officer, for someone's partner to be like completely like non-emotional to what was happening and not worried.
Yeah.
You think? But his calmness and collectiveness kind of like wins him the police. But I think by then the police, those officers, those people were probably pod people.
Possibly. I mean, because I do feel like the detective guy may be one already.
Yeah, already.
Because
definitely.
he's also trying to gaslight Matthew.
Yeah, that's true.
You know?
Yeah.
But I love that Kaufman opted to not use different camera angles.
Oh, yeah.
And instead just went with a single handheld. And you have these actors acting around the camera and stuff, and you're just constantly switching between focal points and stuff, so it makes you feel like you're there.
Yeah, you can't focus because there's so much going on.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful.
Yeah, it adds to the chaotic.
The tension is it's so good. It's so good. They allow Matthew and Jack to leave on the word of Kibner, who for some reason has this like small town like popularity, which makes everyone just like respect him. Matthew, Elizabeth, Jack, and Nancy explain what they saw in detail to Kibner, trying to convince them they're not crazy.
Yeah, at this point, Kibner is a pod person.
Yes,
obviously.
Kibner is a pod person, unfortunately, we discover.
Yeah, because Kibner, I don't know if it might be later.
It's later. Yeah. So at this point, he says that he kind of believes them or whatever, but he leaves, and when he leaves, he gets in the car with the detective and Jeffrey.
Yeah. So it's obvious that Kibner is one of them now, so which is pretty bad.
Yep. So then over the next day or so, Matthew reaches out to several government offices trying to report the strange things happening. Because it turns out one of Kibner's patients is the actual mayor of San Francisco.
Yeah.
And he promises that he's going to reach out to the mayor for Matthew, but that doesn't happen. We get this montage of Matthew just on payphone throughout the day, and then slowly the remarks turn from somewhat interested in the issue to people telling him there's nothing wrong or to worry about and not to report anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We also get a lot of handheld during these montage scenes. There's one shot where Matthew is in a payphone booth and a man comes up and knocks on the door. That man is a pod person, but he's also portrayed by the film's director, Philip Kaufman.
Yep. So Jake, Nancy, and Elizabeth stay the night again with Matthew. Matthew then falls asleep in a chair outside as everyone else sleeps inside his home, except Nancy because she's a real one. Again, Nancy's not letting go.
Yeah. Yeah. Sleepovers are so much fun.
Sleepovers are so much fun.
And what's really shitty at this point was because Kibner was here. He came back. Kibner came back. And he gave Elizabeth something to help her sleep.
Yep.
So the pod people, allegedly, what's happened is they have taken over these people who have the knowledge and stuff of, sleep aids or narcotics or whatever it is, and they've realized that it's easier to consume these people to create duplicates if they're asleep.
Yeah.
So they use their knowledge to essentially make them go to sleep.
Yeah. As they sleep, the pods begin to grow outside around Matthew, then begin to bud and birth the pod people clones. This scene is so disturbing. The image of watching this for the first time in a theater in the 70s must have been so wild.
Yeah. Yeah.
So crazy.
I mean, I couldn't imagine watching a film like this and seeing this level of gruesomeness. I mean,
it's not even gruesome. It's just, there's like no blood or anything. They're just kind of covered in this slime, but we kind of get that body horror because they're kind of not formed to look fully like human yet. They look like giant fetuses, like half-formed fetuses.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's really cool though.
Yeah.
The special effects of this fucking amazing. I love them.
It's like some uncanny valley shit.
Yep. So Nancy wakes Matthew up, whose first instinct is to reach out to the police to tell them about the pods and stuff. And somehow the operator knows Matthew's name. And he's a little slow to realize that they've taken over the police while everyone else is running around getting ready to book it. Like, he is holding the phone. Everyone else is going to the windows, looking outside. Jack's like, do you have a gun? And Matthew's like, no, I don't have a gun. And then Nancy's screaming something, and Elizabeth's running around. It's just, and this is how we discover that the pod people work. While you sleep, it grows a copy of you, same body, same voice, same memories.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I mean, what's very interesting though is that actors themselves had to portray the fetus people. So they had to spend hours in a makeup
Fetus
chair.
people.
They had to spend hours in a makeup chair being covered in this like hair stuff. I couldn't imagine having to wear that for however long it took to get these shots and stuff. But yeah, it's pretty gross.
Yep.
You know.
So as Nancy, Jack, and Elizabeth make a run for it, Matthew hesitates to smash the pod versions of his friend, but is able to destroy his own pod person before following. They run through the streets of San Francisco, being chased by a screaming horde of pod people.
Yeah, Matthew, he hesitates to destroy Elizabeth's doppelganger, which is obviously indicative of how closely he feels to her. But when it comes to his own doppelganger, he hacks that motherfucker up.
Yeah, no hesitation.
Nah.
Pops that boy like a cherry.
Yeah, with a gardening hoe.
Yeah, it goes squish.
Yeah.
And you see the red juices and stuff.
Which, to my understanding, the MPAA at the time, I think they wanted to like make them cut that scene because it was just too gruesome for audiences at the time, from what I understand. But the fact that the body was like hollow and the blood was merely like superficial or whatever, I think that helped them change their outlook on it.
Yeah. I mean, it was a good like gory little thing.
Yeah.
It was fine. Yeah. So they get cornered at a dock where Jack decides he's going to self-sacrifice himself, leaving Matthew and the girls alone. But Nancy, having a bit of a dumb moment, runs after him. Matthew and Elizabeth are now able to get the heat off themselves and escape. So Jack makes a run, and Nancy's like, Jack, and just runs after him. The horde run after both of them, and Matthew and Elizabeth stay behind in the shadows and wait until it clears.
I'll never let go, Jack.
Oh,
I'll
God.
never let go.
Well, there you go. He said it.
I mean, it's a very noble thing of Jack to do, to sacrifice himself. Mm-hmm. But Nancy...
Girl.
Yeah. I mean, I get that you love someone, but
Man.
I don't know.
I mean, I wouldn't know if I would be able to let you go by yourself too, though.
True.
Like...
But I don't know.
We gonna die together, Like, we that type of couple. Like, if some shit, we sticking together. I don't care. We go down together, boy.
You thinking what I'm thinking?
Aim for the bushes.
Aim for the bushes.
So, the next shots are of them walking through the streets. And it's only, like, their feet and to their knees. But it's like this silent conversation and tension. And it was so beautifully shot. Because you see them walking kind of like carefully, kind of like turning and stuff, being a little frantic until they run into another pair. And they cross paths and they keep walking. And then all these other pairs of feet begin to follow them. They are chased into more of an entertainment district, quote unquote entertainment district, where it seems to still be a bit more human. And they are able to grab a cab and try to get to the airport. The cab driver calls in his fare, describing Matthew and Elizabeth as type H.
Yeah. So it was at this point where we first hear the pod people shrieking, as it were?
No, we hear him shrieking at Matthew's place when they're trying to escape. Because when he like pops that head of the his pod person, we see that woman like just point and scream at him.
That's right.
Yeah, like telling on him. Like.
So I could be wrong, and to be fair, I have not done any research on this, so I do not know if this is fact or fiction. Mm-hmm. The pod people shrieking sound like the ass blasters from Tremors 2. Do you know what I'm saying?
The ones where they had legs, right?
Yeah, they have legs, and
Yeah.
their little fucking head thing opens up or whatever.
Yeah, kind
And they
of.
make that shrieking sound or whatever.
Okay. I mean, I
Yeah.
haven't watched Shimmer 2s in a while, so, but I get what you're saying. I know what you're saying.
Yeah, it's just a theory. Also, the cab driver is played by none other than Don Siegel.
Yep.
And he is most known or well known for being the director of the original Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Mm-hmm. So now we have at least 3 cameos in the movie. The first one being Kevin McCarthy.
Yep.
We have the director Philip Kaufman, and now Don Siegel.
Yep.
So interesting.
Yeah, it's a nice little. It's
Little tip of the hat.
Yeah, little just bring everybody in. Big
like-
family times.
Yeah.
Big family reunion,
Thanks for being here.
So when they realize that there's been a set up traffic stop, the two make another run for it. They run into a park and see the unhomed man and his dog laying next to a pod. Matthew kicks the pod, causing it to bleed. They make it into the health department office and hold up there for the night. Also, they kiss. There's a little kissy moment.
Yeah.
They finally, it's very sensual, it's very delicate, and it's good.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah, they dipped out of that fucking cab real quick.
Oh,
though,
yeah.
didn't they?
As soon as they realized, they were like, nope, can't be here.
Yeah, the cab's like, yeah, they're in the back. And then as soon as the cop looks, he just sees the fucking open door,
Yep.
And I like that. I like that shot. And then we see Matthew kicking the fucking pod for the homeless man and the dog. And he didn't even kick it that hard, I
No.
felt like. And then it starts like gushing blood and stuff. But I thought what was super funny was once they're inside the Department of Public Health, they hear like a door open or something like that, and Matthew, seemingly instinctive, he grabs some darts off a dartboard. And
Yeah, he did.
I'm like, what are you gonna do with those? Dude?
Just, you wait. You
Yeah.
saw what he did with them. You wait. The duo watch from inside as the pod people begin to organize and ship the pods. The next morning, pod people, Kibner, Jeffrey, and Jack, and a few others trap and inject a sedative into Matthew and Elizabeth to quicken the transformation. But psych, Elizabeth and Matthew attack Kibner and Jeffrey, locking them both inside a cooler. They escape and run into Nancy, who has been around fooling the pod people and surviving. She lets them know if you hide your emotions, you can fool the pod people.
Yeah, so the first thing that stood out to me was the spring-loaded syringe prop, which I kind of like. I like that idea. So the syringe they use, typically in film, the needle part is spring-loaded.
Yeah.
So they'll push it against the actor's skin, and it just retracts into the tube part. And so it looks real, but he like pushes it into Matthew or Donald Sutherland's vein on his hand, so it makes it look sort of legit. But then when he like pulls it back out, there's no blood or anything, so you can clearly tell it wasn't real.
Right.
But we also find out what Matthew was going to do with that dart now,
Yeah.
because he uses the dart to kill Jack. Or was it not
Jeffrey. I think he kills Jeffrey.
Is it Jeffrey? He kills one of them.
Yeah.
With the dart. And I was like, bro, that's like some real John Wick type shit right there, bro. Mm-hmm. Matthew is a badass.
Matthew is badass.
But it was also kind of heartbreaking in the end to see that Nancy was still looking for Jack.
Yeah, they got separated, and then she couldn't find him. And
And
now we know.
yeah, and Matthew and Elizabeth knew what happened to Jack the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And they essentially did everything they could to not tell her.
Yeah. I think it was just to keep her intact. Because,
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, you're going to have to show some emotion when you find out your partner who you care about.
She would have
Yeah.
broken apart. For
Oh,
sure.
yeah, right there on the staircase.
Yeah.
Everything would have been over
Yeah.
right there.
So they did the right thing, though.
So the trio go out onto the street where everyone else is gathering and collecting pods. While in line, they get their own pod. To get their own pod, the dog of the unhomed man from the park brushes up, now with the face of his owner.
Yeah.
When Matthew kicked the pod, it caused some sort of defect, causing an emergence of the dog in its owner. At the sight of it, Elizabeth freaks out, putting her and Matthew on the run again, leaving Nancy behind.
I don't even blame Elizabeth.
I don't either, because that shit was wild.
Dude, that was fucking like body horror, fucking shock factor right there, dude.
Yeah.
Because you see the dog coming.
Mm-hmm. And you see its face.
Yeah, you see the face.
Yeah.
But then finally it gets up real close and you can see all the fine details.
The up close shot of it is...
And it's like licking... it's like licking its lips, but its lips are human. You know, it's a human face on a dog. So,
it also makes banjo noises.
Oh, when it does. Oh, God.
Yeah, it does. Everything went fucking wrong there.
That was one fugly ass fucking dog, man. There's an old... When Elizabeth freaks out, there's an old woman that starts shrieking at them, and Matthew just slaps the shit
Yeah, he does. Yeah, he does.
I was like, my boy... Oh, man, he out here fucking shit up, dude. Just slap that bitch. He was like, shut your damn mouth.
You didn't see shit.
You ain't see shit.
The couple are able to make it onto an open truck and lose the mob of pod people. The truck takes them to a factory where they are mass producing the pods. As they slip away from the factory, Elizabeth twists her ankle and Matthew carries her off into the bushes.
Yeah, at this point I was like, man, they should have burned that fucking factory down.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's a good idea, Troy.
It is a good idea, isn't it?
They hear bagpipes playing Amazing Grace. Thinking that this could be their way out, Matthew leaves Elizabeth to investigate ships. When he reaches the docks, he discovers that the ships are being used to transport the pods internationally.
Yeah. It's pretty sad to see Matthew and the other survivors trying so hard to beat them, to battle the pods and stuff, for it to just... Because at this point, it's a pretty decisive victory for the pods, I would say. Mm-hmm. You know, because, I mean, once they go international, I mean, that's kind of it.
Yeah.
You know, and for them to just lose in the end.
When Matthew returns to Elizabeth, he finds her asleep. He tries to wake her, but it's too late. The shell of Elizabeth begins to crumble and flake away as Matthew holds her. Then the new Elizabeth pops right up out of the bushes.
Yeah, that was...
Matthew!
That was a pretty fucked up scene, though.
Oh, yeah. He's just devastated. It's so sad.
What's even more fucked up is before he left her to go investigate, he told her he loved her. Mm-hmm. He said, I love you.
Yeah.
And then he comes back and she's gone. Mm-hmm. You do get to see boobs.
Yeah, you get to see Brooke's boobs.
Yeah,
Brooke Adams.
Yeah. But yeah, still devastating.
You really wanted to throw that in there that you get to see the boobs.
Yeah, that was for the guys, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about the girls?
I mean, those two.
What about the theys?
Sure.
Thems.
Anyone who finds boobs interesting.
There you go. Interesting.
There's
okay.
Boobs.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So Matthew makes another run for it. He makes it back to the factory, destroying the lighting fixtures and setting the factory on fire in the process. There you go. You happy with that?
Yeah.
Yeah. He runs through the night until he takes refuge under a pier. Then a bright light blinds us, and we see Matthew going about his normal day.
Yep.
He appears to be cautious and emotionless, but sneaks peeks at Elizabeth. He walks outside where Nancy spots him and calls out to him. She tries to approach him. He then points and screeches at her, revealing that he now is a pod person.
Yep. The ending scene of him shrieking at Nancy is pretty famous, I would say.
Yeah.
But what's also interesting about that was Veronica Cartwright, Nancy. She was directed to just approach him as though she hadn't seen him in a while. you know, and as Nancy normally would. Like she was not under the impression that this was how the story ends. So when she approaches him and he begins shrieking at her, she is finding out just as we are finding out that he is a pod person.
Yeah.
So in essence, Nancy is the voice of the audience at that point. She is how the audience should feel at that point. And I really loved how this movie ended, because the original film ends where humans, the survivors, defeat the pod people. They defeat the pods essentially.
Yeah.
But I believe the reason that ended like that was because the production studio wanted it to end like that, not that the director wanted it to end like that. And Philip Kaufman essentially said, "No, fuck that. We're going to end it how it should end." And there we go. But in essence, it was a very good way to end that movie for sure.
Oh yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
So, upon release, many critics praised the film for being smarter and scarier than most horror films at the time. Robert Ebert gave it a 3.5 out of 4 stars, which is pretty good.
Yeah.
He called it terrifying and a thriller with real fear. Others compared it to the 1956 original, saying the remake was darker and more mature and more psychological. It was filmed mostly in San Francisco and around the Bay Area. The budget was $3.5 million, and the U.S. gross was over $24 million. It was a commercial success, especially for the horror sci-fi film with a bleak tone. It really did push the sci-fi movie genre forward, definitely with this one. It's a cult classic status. It has a 93% on Rotten Tomatoes, which I feel is fair, and a 75 out of 100 on the Metacritic.
Nice.
It's timeless, socially aware, and emotionally intense. And I would say this is a 8.5 at least for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the way, I don't know, the story, it also shows a bit of diversity between, I guess, politically, if you want to go that route too, because even the original was filmed during McCarthyism and stuff. Mm-hmm. And the pod people are essentially supposed to portray what was believed to be like communism and stuff like that. So,
yep, make everyone the same, make everyone equal.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with making people equal, but you can't make people the same.
No.
We have our own motivations and personalities and stuff. You can't take away our individuality.
Right.
And that's what this is about.
Yeah.
Because, if we could have, world peace and stuff, of course we would.
Right.
Most people would want that. I would say the general population would want that. Mm-hmm. But there are the people who believe that their idea of peace is getting rid of certain people or making certain people act a certain way just to make it easier for them.
Yeah, their idea of peace is being on top, essentially, being the victor.
That too.
So, but at any rate, that is Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. I would give it, I'd probably be up there 8.5 out of 10.
It's good. It's a good movie.
It is a good movie.
Yeah.
I would like to sit down and watch the original one day.
Oh yeah.
And
apparently there's a 90s remake too that I didn't know about. So
yeah, I don't know anything about it either. I know one of the documentaries we were watching talked a lot about it. And I did see a clip that may have had Daniel Craig in it. But maybe we'll watch that too.
Maybe.
At some point.
Maybe. I'm glad we watched this one. I'm glad we did this one.
Yeah.
This one seems good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This this is episode 49, I believe.
48.
Is it?
I think it's 48.
No, this is 49.
Is it?
Yep.
Okay.
Which means next episode
Yep.
will be episode 50.
So just to remind everyone, there will not be an episode next week or the week after. So the 26th and then the 2nd, we're not going to have episodes because this weekend is our wedding anniversary.
Yeah.
And we're going to be busy. And then the weekend after is Monster Palooza. And we are going to be busy.
Monster Palooza.
Yep. So reminding everyone on June 1st, we're going to be there the last day of Monster Palooza on the Sunday. We are going to have, and I made you watch t-shirts, and we're going to have a very few selection. There's a very small selection of stickers or amount of stickers. So yeah, if you see us and you recognize us and you're, brave enough, come say hi. Just say hi, get a sticker.
Yeah. I can promise you, we will be more nervous than you are in that moment.
Oh, yeah.
So, don't be afraid to approach us and say hi.
Yeah.
What's up? We'd love to see you. But yeah, Pasadena, California, June 1st, Monster Palooza. Hopefully we'll see you there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, episode 50.
Yep.
We're going to be talking about the 1922 Nosferatu.
Yep.
And I hope you all will join us then. This will be Danny's first time seeing it.
Yeah, seeing the original Nosferatu, yes.
I've seen it maybe once, maybe twice.
Yeah, you've seen it at least once. So I don't know why you said maybe once.
I'm trying to add a bit of intrigue to it. Anyways,
okay.
Yeah, I have seen it. I promise. But yeah, that's going to be pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yep.
Alrighty. Well, that's all the time we have for today, I think.
Where can they find us?
Well, they can find us on YouTube.
Uh-huh.
Where we have 8,500 subscribers.
Nice.
There's 8,500 of you that, deemed us worthy enough to
subscribe.
Bless with your subscription.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
You can also find us on Spotify. And you can find us on Patreon, where you can find exclusive episomes.
There are some video episodes. I don't know how many, because we kind of touch and go with that. But also unedited audios of our episodes.
Yes,
you can hear all the shit that goes on.
Yeah. Also, if you guys want, you can reach out and we can maybe get more stickers and shirts and stuff, and I think we would entertain that idea.
Oh, yeah, we would.
Sending those out and all that stuff. So that'd be pretty cool. And yeah. But yeah, make sure you reach out to us on Facebook, Instagram, and Blue Sky. We'd love to hear from you.
Yep.
And tell us your favorite movies.
Tell us something.
Talk
to us.
Yeah. So at any rate, stay spooky.
Bye.